Welcome back to Echo Ridge and another episode here in our Max Colonization series, where today we are going to be conquering this planetoid. Yes, I know there's a bunch of interplanetary payloads here, but it's because our wonderful targeting beacon ran out of power because I sent the ESS Colonizer home to get more oxygen. They'll be back shortly and then we'll get the power online here. Don't worry, the next time they go back home for an oxygen refill, this place should be power positive, so more on that here in a little bit. But first, over on our home planetoid, I have updated this coolant loop with super coolant, and boy has it been making me happy. Look at the steady stream of materials that now comes out of our debris chiller. In fact, I'm going to go fast forward here for a minute. You can see that it doesn't take our debris chiller very long to cool down those materials. And if you're wondering how much more effective it is, well, you only have to look at the description for polluted water and see that it has a thermal conductivity of 0.58 and a specific heat capacity of 4.1 versus supercoolant that has a thermal conductivity of 9.4 and a specific heat capacity of 8.4. It's not even close. In fact, since I've been waiting for the ESS colonizer to refill with oxygen, I've just been staring at how well this conveyor rail moves, and many times it ends up empty. Right now it's not, because we just had a couple of volcanoes erupt, so it refills the lines back up. But I think next is to update this coolant loop here. This one, you may remember, is responsible for our water chilling. And to get an idea of how much better it's going to be, we just have to look at the liquid shutoff. Last 5 cycles, it has been running 63% of the time, and these ponds are still here. We have managed to empty out one of them, and almost the second, but it would be great to do the same sort of upgrade that we did with the last loop. So to do that, I am just going to drain this loop. Let's go ahead and snip it here, and now all the coolant will end up going into this liquid reservoir. Fast forward, and then we just wait for a moment for this entire loop to drain, and it looks pretty bone dry, so I can just deconstruct this buffer tank here. It'll leave us with a 4-ton bottle of polluted water, which we will then just empty into the sauna, and then using a bottle drainer, we will refill the loop with the super coolant. We have to enable auto bottle. That way they know to come grab it out of this bottle filler, which, by the way, we are chocked full with 5 tons of super coolant. Well, 5 tons and 1 bottle, and still have almost 1,900 kilos worth of fullerene. Yes, a little bit does truly go a long way, with each batch of 100 kilos of super coolant only requiring 1 kilo of fullerene. We could quite literally make a giant swimming pool full of super coolant. Clay, we're gonna need something else to do with the fullerene. Give me a few minutes to load up this entire loop, and I'll give you an update on how much more efficient the water chiller is working. We had all that fullerene, and that was before the ESS Explorer just returned with another entire batch. We have a ludicrous amount of material. And as promised, this time we will be using the solid rocket port unloader. So I could just say all standard on the unloader, but I want to make sure no matter what we're bringing back, it doesn't need to be cooled. So I'm just going to select everything individually for now. Make sure I hook it up with power this time. And now all those materials will join the rest on the rail. And our oxygen tank is almost full, so I think we will go ahead and crew up the Explorer and send everybody back to Sigwolf. Something I realized too, all of the leftover oxygen from when the suits needed to be repaired ended up being about 416 kilos. This next trip will probably be able to extend it a little bit longer by just simply recycling that back into the system. We have all the duplicates loaded up, and I'm going to wait until we are absolutely chocked full. And there we go. We'll acknowledge the warnings. Good luck. We'll see you soon. Our colony builders have landed back on Sigwolf, and I was going to get a few things done around here, but I wanted to highlight the oxalite meteors. Notice they don't really do a lot of damage, and since they're in the vacuum of space, they just sort of dissipate. Yeah, it's a lot of oxalite, and it's a shame not to use it, but if I am here and I notice it, I can go dig it up, which is what I'm going to do right now, and then I can have them pick it all up and put it into this automatic dispenser. They can't hit this tile because it's too far away, and I have the permissions locked on this door. The point I was trying to make earlier though is, alternatively, I could just leave it here, and it will slowly dissipate. More on why that's important here in a little bit. Man, this is so much oxalite. I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't enough to provide oxygen for 2 duplicants. So I didn't realize I had sent so much super coolant over to this planetoid. Yeah, there's 4.7 tons of it over here as well. I know we're going to need it today, but I didn't think it was that much. No, you're not supposed to be able to reach it. Oh, well, I guess I'll put it on sweep only for now. All said and done, there is about 4 tons of oxalite here and a little over a ton of oxalite here. There we go. Adding another tile to fix that problem. But the reason why we're going to need all that supercoolant is because when I'm looking at a planetoid, yeah, we have to be concerned with oxygen first and then food, but we also have to think about how we're going to provide power for those things. And in this case, I think there's enough volcanoes here that we could use the surplus as a potential for power. Additionally, as I've described, this planetoid only gets oxalite meteors. I think we can put down solar panels without worrying about them getting broken. Unfortunately, I didn't bring any glass. That's something I'm gonna have to add to the list, or I could just launch it through space. We'll send 5 tons and see how that goes. And since I'm over here, I wanted to show you that this liquid shutoff has now been green 94% of the time this cycle. What that means is the water comes in here and it hardly ever stops because of the upgrade of the supercoolant. Keep in mind that supercoolant is also taming a cool steam vent, and that the water that it's cooling right now is at 95°C. I suppose we'll start with this copper volcano, and because I'm going to be taming so many of them, I'm going to do most of them in the background, but I figured we'll at least highlight one of them here today. Also, the dupes are going to be working on getting the food set up. I think it was just way too obvious for us to run pip omelets because of all the arbor trees and the pips. And since there's so much beautiful natural tile, I can get the pips to pip plant the arbor trees so I don't even have to provide them with polluted water. We also have oxiferns here that I can use to take care of the carbon dioxide. So this planetoid is going to be pretty easy to settle. I do need to keep an eye out though for a rancher to be able to take care of those pips. And I haven't found one yet, but what I did find is the new dupe cena. This cena is an operator who's also frostproof. Their negatives don't really matter. They're just not very good with critters or cooking, but I figured they'd be a great replacement over on our main planetoid. Now I know I normally rename the dupes, but because this is a brand new dupe introduced with the new pack, I figured we'll keep cena's name default. Let me go over to our main planetoid and then print cena, who is now duplicate number 29 of the series. And yes, cena, you may be new, but you need to go run in the gym for a while. And oh my goodness, how long has Colonel Sanders been in the gym? Oh my goodness. They have 8 skill points and an athletics of 25. But needless to say, I could have taken Colonel Sanders out of the gym a long time ago. So if you happen to remember, here in a couple of episodes, remind me to take cena out. Okay, back over here on Civil, I am going to start to dig through here. Now I know this is really open to the vacuum of space, but apparently I have a lot of oxygen, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm just going to bulldoze through this. But I will start putting a bunch of drywall in its place. We'll try to get this done as fast as possible while I'm building that volcano tamer. I think for simplicity today, we'll just use some fresh white. It's a good thing there's a lot of igneous rock on this planetoid, but we're making good headway at filling up this hole. For those of you wondering why there's a hole in the middle of the planetoid, it's because of the crushed satellite. Or at least, that's my guess. I also thought it wise to block in the oxalite. That way I don't waste too much of it, and we can re-oxygenate this place after I'm done. And here we go. No more oxygen leakage, so I can open this back up. And I'm also dropping some of the water here. It's so much work. We're just going to combine the standard water with the salt water. We'll eventually process all of that. I'm also vacuuming out this room here. You can see that we have our super secure saltwater liquid lock at 34.5 grams. Should be just fine, especially considering the duplicants are not exhaling or bringing anything in or out. We only need it to make sure that we have a vacuumed environment before we can continue here. Back up here, I'm starting to sweep all of this out because I think this is where our pip ranch is going to be. There's lots of nice natural tiles here. There's pips. The temperature is good. So this seemed like a perfect opportunity. But I need to get it all cleaned out so when I do put the pips in there, there's no other seeds for them to start pip planting. We've also gained access to the bedrooms here. And since there is an oxygenated environment and a free outhouse, I'm going to put this on a priority of 6 so they know to take care of it. I figured it's about time to print out Sylvial's first duplicate. This Higby here looks like they're going to enjoy farming and ranching, and their only negative is that they'll have decreased construction, which is not a big deal because when we leave, there'll be no more construction going on here. So welcome to duplicate number 30 in the series, but duplicate number 1 for Sylvial, Mr. Alves. Unfortunately, Mr. Alves is not going to have any time in the gym, but it doesn't really matter because I don't think any duplicate here is going to be in any suits. It does mean, though, that I need a new schedule, so I'll just copy Recalens. We'll call this one Sylvial. I'm going to butcher this. Oh, look at that. I didn't. Look, I'm just as shocked as you are. And we'll put Mr. Alves there. I also need a nice place for Mr. Alves to eat, and I figured this area looks pretty good. Utilizing the point of interest as much as we can. We'll also seal it in. I'll provide 2 mess tables because that's how many duplicates will be on this colony, and sharing the same schedule. We actually have glass now that's been shipped over, so I will make a glass arrow pot, and then we'll finish it off with a wonderful party line phone. That way everybody across the star map can stay connected, and we'll just connect it there. And now we have a great hall. I suppose I could try to make it a banquet hall. We'll put a pedestal over on this side. I just don't think there's anything over here that is worthy of being displayed. I didn't even find a terrestrial artifact here. Apparently there's several things that can be displayed. Let me try putting a pip egg. I think it halts the growth of the pip egg. And yes, if we click on the pedestal and then click on the pip egg, in its contents, you can see it says growth suppressed. It'll pretty soon lose all viability. Unfortunately, it does not count as a displayed ornament, so it doesn't really make it worth it destroying a pip here. The only thing that are ornaments are the artifacts themselves. So until I get one over here, we'll just have to suffice with a great hall. Mr. Alves, how did you get a suit? No! How do I block Mr. Alves from even coming in here? I suppose I could just not allow them to go outside the airlock. Poor Josh Manchester was stuck inside the rocket. In other news, our copper volcano tamer is vacuumed out, so I can get rid of this gas pump, and that'll make room for everything else we need to put into it, such as the thermal aqua tuner. We'll make that out of steel. In fact, we'll use our new Regal Neutronium thermal aqua tuner. I'm also going to add a smart battery, also made out of steel, but I cannot put that in until I dump all the water I need in here. With this being a 4-tile high tamer, and I want, let's say, 50 kilos worth of steam pressure in here, which means I need 200 kilos in each tile, so it's going to take about 7 bottles full. I, of course, overfilled it by a little bit. That's not going to be too big of a deal. I can now deconstruct the bottle emptier and be able to put in our battery. We're going to be taking all of the copper that the volcano spits out and throwing it in a conveyor loader. We'll put the auto sweeper in the conveyor loader over here. We have plenty of aluminum ore and gold amalgam on this planetoid. They don't have the highest melting point, just over 1,000 for the aluminum and the gold amalgam. So we'll have to use steel right in front of the volcano, but for everywhere else, it's not a big deal. In an effort to make this a little cleaner, I've rotated the conveyor loader. That way this whole thing will be a little cleaner. Oh, that's not great. Maybe we'll just go something like this. There we go. I think that's going to be just fine. And then it'll go through that metal tile that's going to be chilled into a conveyor chute. Now I know I am digging up this tile, and the big reason is because, well, it's dormant. So as long as I finish the tamer before it becomes undormant, we'll be just fine. Plus, it'll take the copper a little while to boil all this water anyways. For those of you who have seen my volcano tamers, you'll know the next thing up is going to be a timer sensor, and we do this to open the chute a certain amount of time based on the copper volcano itself, which, by the way, I need to analyze. And from there, we'll know what's the least amount of time we can open this chute per cycle so that the cooling loop that we're going to put in has as much opportunity to chill down that small chunk. Speaking of cooling things down, we can also put in our steam turbine. Oh my goodness, there's another blueprint for it in the Neutronium Cosmetics pack. I do have to use conductive wire for inside of this tamer for the simple reason that it's going to carry more than 1,000 watts. So I can also get rid of this one, and then I can start building the aqua tuner. I also can put in the battery now. It will also be made out of steel. And then pretty much all that's left is hooking up the cooling loop. Oh, I just realized where I'm going to put my automation is where my smart battery is. Well, it looks like that smart battery is going on the outside of the sauna. Maybe I should have made it one tile bigger, which we could still do now, but it's not a big deal. The smart battery doesn't generate a lot of heat anyways. There we go. Some may even say that looks cleaner. Now I can bring in my loop, and we'll switch it over to, I suppose, iron. Not the best conductor, but until some of these volcanoes start spitting out, say, copper, it's the best refined metal I have right now. I'll also need some radiant liquid pipes there. And there we go. The cooling loop is in. Last little touch. I gotta put in the vent or the steam turbine, along with some automation for both the steam turbine and the thermal aqua tuner. And now I just wait around for the dupes to finish building it. Oh, I suppose I will put in some drywall. How about some fancy new Regal Neutronium tuft? Now you might notice that I have not connected this to our power grid. And that's because I want to see if this tamer is power positive. Depending on the volcano and its heat will mostly depend on whether or not you're going to be generating enough heat and there go steam turbine power to run the thermal aqua tuner and everything else in here. Now in most cases, I'd say it is power positive. In this case, because I'm going to be using super coolant, I have no reason to believe it's not going to be, but I want to do some testing. There are specifically self-powered metal volcano tamer designs out there. I've covered a few of them in the past, but this has always been my go-to for the simple reason that, well, it's easy to build. And some of you also might be wondering, well, why am I not using the NG's tune-up here? Well, if we get an electrical engineer here, we might, for the simple reason that we're going to have plenty of refined metal on this planetoid. And we're going to have plenty of power too. Just as soon as I put in all the solar panels, we're going to cover the entire surface. I suppose there's no time like the present. I just need to make sure it's high enough to bypass things like this copper volcano, but not so high that the dupes not in suits are going to have problem going to get oxalite off of it. I'm going to have to put a steam turbine on that volcano, so maybe this point here is going to be good. There we go. Now temporarily this will end up jettisoning some oxygen, but it's not going to be too big of a deal. I'm also going to need the heavy watt wire. We have plenty of aluminum and gold amalgam here. I will bring that in just like this, putting a heavy watt joint plate. Let's say here. Why can't it go there? Oh, because of that wire. There we go. And then all I'll have to do is put in a battery box somewhere. We're also building a pip ranch. Even with 5 dupes on the planetoid, this is still taking quite some time. And we've already started with some panic. What are you doing, Noosh? That's not how you build a solar panel. Our copper volcano is finished being analyzed. It's not going active again for another 28.5 cycles. That's unfortunate. But you can see here that its average output is 290.5 grams per second, which means we want to make sure that we're opening this timer sensor often enough to eat up 290.5 grams per second. Well, remember, each debris packet that's going to come out through the chute is going to be 20 kilos. So if we take 20 kilos or 20,000 grams and divide it by 290.5, we get 68.8. So if we open the chute once every 69, pause for effect, seconds, we should be taking as much debris out of here as possible while maintaining the most efficiency. Because if we went faster than that, our thermal aqua tuner would have to work harder because there'd be more hot rock sitting in this tile. Oh, look at the big guns on Lyra. I think we just found Civiol's number 2 dupe. Not only are they going to be great at farming and ranching, but they're also going to be able to cook those omelets. Welcome to duplicate number 31 of the series and number 2 here on Civiol, Sigwolf. Let me update my new permissions door to make sure Sigwolf can't go through it either. Since I made this door, they can now hop down, and Mr. Alves was stealing more suits. Now I think the only thing we have left to do here is fill up this loop with some super coolant. And after that's done, we'll seal it up. Oh, look at this. It's perfect timing. Oh, you're stuck, aren't you, Josh? Way to go, hero. As we can see, the solar panels have no problems absorbing the impact of the oxalite. Let me make sure my room is fixed. I don't even think we're going to put a spawn here. Every once in a while when there's a meteor shower, I'll have Sigwolf and Mr. Alves go clean up some oxalite. They'll drop it all right here, and Whammo blammo, oxygen's done. In fact, it'd be even better if I made this all out of airflow tiles, huh? Because we were using so much of our suits, we started running out of power. The solar panels just couldn't keep up. So what I've done is just added a manual generator in here. Old Fallout Stan is charging that battery. Unfortunately, the manual generator does make this a miscellaneous room instead of our wonderful Great Hall. But that's not too big of a deal. As soon as the battery is charged again, I will just deconstruct the wheel. Alternatively, I could run this heavy watt wire all the way up here to the battery, but that's a pretty far distance, so I'd rather not spend all that construction time. Oh, Sigwolf, you really are dancing with fate, aren't you? Next up, while we wait for that volcano to start, I think it's time to start pip planting in here. Our dupes are almost done sweeping it out, so I don't have to worry too much. First thing I'm going to do is add some ceiling trim here at the bottom. And the reason why we use ceiling trim, if you don't have Priority Zero mod, is because the duplicants will never try to build this ceiling trim because it's in the wrong position. But regardless, there's now a blueprint there, which means our pip will not try to pip plant there. I've got a storage bin here. I'm going to grab all the arbor acorns around the planetoid. And I know I'm going to put a grooming station here, a critter drop off here. And so this should be our first tree location. And then I'll skip 2, and then we'll put another one here. I also need to make sure there's no other plants around here. I was building this metal volcano tamer. I chose this one next because I need a cooling loop for what's going to end up being our battery box. And I'd realized I had forgotten something over here. In order for me to check to make sure that it is power positive, well, I need to put a little bit more automation in here. So I'm going to use a thermosensor. I'm going to put it wherever I can. In this case, it's going to go right here. And it is also going to have the audacity to be able to tell the steam turbine when to turn on. In other words, if we get too low a power on this individual loop, the smart battery is going to say, hey, we need the power. But if that doesn't happen, I still need to keep the heat in here below 275 degrees, or I'm going to end up breaking an auto sweeper and a conveyor loader. Fallout Stan is finishing the analysis on this volcano, and it looks like I need more iron again. I will send for some more. And before I could even get back, Fallout Stan had finished. Let me relocate those data banks. Now, the only difference about this one is the fact that the battery is going to go into it. You'll notice right now it's flooded. Well, the battery doesn't care about being in steam, but it definitely cares about being in water. I don't know how to explain it, it's just the science of it. This one is going to erupt in 1.9 cycles. And I know we still want to put our fancy new wallpaper in here, so we better hurry. Especially considering I still have more stuff to do here. I need to bring in the conveyor chute, and then we'll have to seal this up. I can always fill the coolant loop from this side. I think this is it. Over on this side, we are finished. And we're also making pretty good headway on our pip ranch. You can see here we have an arbor tree growing. So next, and I think we finished this one in time as well. Let's go ahead and seal that up. Automation looks good. Rails look good. Power looks good. I can also figure out the math. We have 314.6 grams. So 20,000 divided by that is 63.5 seconds. Not as nice. So once every 64 seconds, we will tell this chute to open. And with this cooling loop going in, I could probably replace some of this with insulated now. I'm also going to put in just a couple of more of the transformers just for future growth and replace this line with conductive. And there we go. Our battery box is complete. For those of you who've never seen a battery box, you use these in cases such as with the solar panels. We only get so much light during the cycle. When it gets to be nighttime, the solar panels sort of dry up. So you want to store all of this power. Now, if it was completely optimum, you'd have as many batteries as it would take to store all of this power. On this planetoid, that is complete and utter overkill. So we just went with a convenient number, whatever just floated my boat, and stuck them in here. We are using jumbo batteries because they hold 40 kilojoules worth of power, whereas our smart battery only holds 20. Now the downside of that is, well, they create more heat at 1.25 kilodTUs each. So you also need to provide a little bit of cooling for them as well. Hence the cooling loop that we've extended from the metal volcano tamer that has already started to erupt. I can't start filtering the debris around it until it manages to boil all this water. Now I could accelerate that by just hooking this up to house power, and then turning on the aqua tuner, but I'm not in a hurry. Mr. Alves, why are you starving? Oh, because you have no calories. We're almost done with the Pip Ranch, I promise. No worries, I will just bring some pemmican out here. You definitely don't need all of it. We'll say 10 kilos. Oh, that was a bit too close. Mr. Alves was down to 250 calories. It didn't take too many eruptions for the aluminum volcano to turn this into a steam bath, so now the battery is happy, but we're still not hot enough to turn the steam turbine on. Maybe one more eruption? What's going on with you? Why won't you perform? Oh, you still have 14 and a half cycles. Alright, you're excused. Yes, steam turbine! Power us! Right now we do have a deficit, because the coolant hasn't been cooled in quite some time. But it shouldn't take too long before we're on the right side of the power track. I have the steam turbine set to 25 degrees. I think for right now I'm going to turn it off, just to allow the steam turbine to charge the battery a little bit. And I also need to remember to set this sensor to say, hey, if it's above 250, go ahead and turn on anyways. And now the steam turbine is turned off, even though we do have excess heat in here. So I'm going to turn on the thermal aqua tuner. It does quickly drain that battery, but this super coolant is already down to 19 and 20 degrees. I'm also, while we have the power, going to start filtering this aluminum around. It's still sitting at 356 degrees, so it'll help make this hot box even hotter. So I will say, well, I suppose I can say everything. There is still a little bit of junk in here. And as that hot aluminum comes around, it's going to heat up the steam in this area. It then pauses right here. And look how fast that temperature is dropping, even with something like igneous rock, which doesn't have a great thermal conductivity. The power of supercoolant is just amazing, and the coolant's not even picking up that much thermals from the metal tile either. And we've got another eruption cycle, which is making the steam turbine even happier, especially with all that hot aluminum sitting on the rails. The aluminum quickly loses its temperature, and it's sitting here at around 32 degrees. This is going to take a little bit longer, but as you can see, the battery box is already sitting at around 20 to 25 degrees. So I'm going to say this is a giant success, and with the supercoolant, it is 100% power positive, even with it providing the coolant for this battery box. This copper volcano is still unwilling to perform. We still have a little bit more work to do over here with our Pip Ranch. In fact, the last seed is going in now. Then we'll set up some omelets, but I think the ESS Explorer and our colonization team is done with this planetoid. So next episode, we will be seeking out another planetoid to start our colonization efforts there. I have no doubt that it'll be more difficult than this planetoid. This one was sort of a piece of cake, especially with the oxalite meteors. So I hope you enjoyed this episode and are looking forward to more in this series. As a reminder, make sure you keep hitting that like button, so that way this series maintains its popularity and we can continue to conquer even more planetoids. So until next time, much love, happy gaming, and I'll talk to you soon.